welcome back to my channel. I hope you've all been doing well. Today I want to talk about 10 books that I'm excited to read this summer. Summer's always been my favorite season, and though in the last few years I've kind of come to appreciate spring and fall a bit more, I still always get very excited, looking forward to the warmer weather. It's been a pretty mild summer here so far. I'm used to a lot warmer ones, but I've just moved to a new city out in Western Canada, and it's a little chilly for a summer. But it's warming up very appropriately right after the summer solstice. All the days have gotten a lot warmer, a lot less rainier, so I'm looking forward to those nice sunny summer days. I do want to say that none of these books necessarily have like a super specific summer vibe to them. Maybe some of them kind of do accidentally, but they're not necessarily like beach reads or books that feature like, I don't know, the season of summer in them too much. They're just 10 books that I really want to read this summer. I'm not very good at doing TBRs, like immediate ones. I have a very extensive TBR on my Goodreads of just books that I always just want to read and then never really get to. So this is just me trying to cut down on some of that. Because I'm very much a mood reader, so I'll go to the library, usually for like one specific book, then I'll see a few others on display and I'll just pick them up and end up reading those. Sometimes I'll hear about someone else on here speaking about a book, and I will just like look for that book, and if it's at the library then I will borrow it immediately and read it immediately if it's something that grabs me. So, and there's a couple books on here that are like that are like newer-ish books maybe that I just kind of recently heard of, but like I really want to read, but most of them are books that I've either owned for a while now and still haven't read, or just haven't read despite having them on my TBR for some time. But yeah, no specific theme, just want to talk about some books. Hope some of them might end up being interesting to you. First book is A Man Called Ove by Frederick Backman, and this is a book that I'll be reading with a new book club that I just joined, so I'm super excited about that. I might have mentioned this book club before. We just met for the first time a couple weeks ago, just mostly to like decide on what book to read and to kind of meet. We didn't start anything yet, but our next meeting is at the end of July, so I will be starting this book maybe in the next week or so, and I'm really excited to discuss. This book is about a grumpy old man who kind of seems to be a bit of a recluse, keeps to himself, doesn't necessarily have the most optimistic view on life until a bunch of loud and possibly nosy neighbors move in. They accidentally flatten his mailbox, and I think they want to be friends with him. And they very likely do become friends. I'm kind of looking forward to that sort of shift in Ove's personality and the sort of relationships that come about. And it seems like there might be a sort of change to the norms of sort of their community that they live in. I forget if it's an apartment complex or just sort of like a street community. I don't know. But either way, I think there will be some changes to that through that friendship as well. I've only read one other book by Frederick Backman before, Anxious People, and I really enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. I know that there's a lot of other books he's quite well known for. Beartown is the only one that immediately comes to mind, but I know that I've seen and heard of others. And I've been kind of meaning to check a few out after reading Anxious People and crying about the ending. So here is that chance finally. The next book is Young Mungo by Douglas Stewart, and I bought this book not super long ago, but a couple months ago, and I've been wanting to read it for some time now, and actually even more so since I met with my reading group or reading book club, because one of the girls told me she's in another book club and they mostly read sad books, and she's like, we started with Young Mungo, and it just went from there. So that really renewed my interest in this book that I had heard quite a bit about when it came out, I believe last year. This is a love story between two boys in Glasgow, one who is Protestant and one who is Catholic, and they grow up in a very sort of like territorial area where there's a lot of like sectarian divides between the young men there. So these two boys, Mungo and James, they should be enemies, but they do become friends and eventually do start falling for each other as well. I'm not sure if they keep their friendship a secret, but they definitely have to keep their love a secret. Eventually Mungo gets sent to another part of the country or outside the country and meets two other men, and really feels like he needs to challenge like these feelings about himself and whether he can come forward with them or not, and the sort of relationship he hopes that he and James can have in the future. So apparently it's quite a sad book about love, but it's also heartbreaking, so I'm excited but nervously so for it. I've heard good things. A lot of people have enjoyed this book, but with like the sad caveats that come with reading a book like this. The next book is The Only One Left by Riley Sager, and this is one of those books that I just kind of recently heard about and saw that we have at the library, and am now first in line in the holds, so I'll probably get to this one pretty soon, and I'm nervous but excited. I didn't think I would read another Riley Sager book after hearing the criticisms of his last two, and I did get spoiled a little bit, especially about the most recent one, I think The House on the Lake or something. I might have messed that title up, and I got a lot of it spoiled for me. Like, I just watched someone else's kind of like review on it, and it seemed ridiculous, and I was like, I don't want to read another book by him, and I've liked some of them. They are all coming up with blanks right now. There's one about an apartment, and I think The Final Girls group, I hope that's by him. If not, maybe I'll edit this out, or I'll put a correction, but there are a couple books that I enjoyed by him. But they're mostly kind of like mid-tier thrillers. Like, the concept of the story is interesting enough, as I think this one is, which I'll explain in a sec. And there's usually like a couple interesting twists as well. Sometimes they're a little predictable, sometimes not. I think I've only read 2 or 3 books by him, and I feel like I've called a couple things, and a couple things surprised me, so that's fun. But the characters are usually kind of flat and boring or annoying. He's criticized for the way he writes his female characters, so I'm not necessarily looking forward to that aspect of it, and I haven't personally enjoyed that aspect of his previous books either. But I don't know, this one does sound like I just want to read it. So this story follows a young nurse who is assigned to work as a caretaker for an older lady who was accused of killing her family in a Lizzie Borden style type murder. This lady was never convicted for her crimes. This was when she was a younger girl. So yeah, she was never convicted, but she also never left her family home that she grew up in. So there's a lot of mystery surrounding her. The way that the previous caretaker left is also kind of a mystery, but apparently was in an unpleasant way. So this new nurse who comes in, she does get told, like, the older lady wants to tell her like some of her story, and she finds that there's a lot more to that story than she previously thought and that many people might think, but she's not sure if this lady is a reliable narrator or not, and if there is something that she should be worried about. So I'm really curious about this. I'm really curious about whether the older lady committed the murder, and if so, was there a reason? If not, then who did it? I don't know. These sort of like falsely accused sort of stories always interest me, because it's always like, did you do it or didn't you? Like, I don't know, that's the biggest question to me, and then it's very interesting to kind of hear about the why or how as well. So I am looking forward to this one, honestly, and I'm sure I'll be disappointed in some ways, as I have been with a lot of Riley Sager, or just kind of some thrillers, like popular thrillers in general, but I'm still looking forward to it. This next book is one that I just also recently heard about, called A Manual for How to Love Us by Erin Slaughter, and it is a collection of connected short stories. These stories are apparently fairly unconventional, are stories of queerness and grief and women in sort of desperate situations. So I'm really interested in that, even though short stories are a little bit of a hit or miss for me. The cover is really beautiful. That always kind of gets me interested as well. I think themes of like grief and distress are very interesting to me. And there is a story about a woman who I believe gets caught up in MLMs. So that is also, I don't know, something about MLMs are also very interesting to me. So I'm looking forward to that one in particular. And I like to know that the stories are connected. I think that's also a very cool thing that some short story authors do. The next book is the Oleander Sword by Tasha Suri, and this is a sequel to The Jasmine Throne, which I read sometime last year, and I feel like I need to reread, honestly, because I've forgotten what I feel like are some pretty key details already. This is an epic fantasy series that takes place in a sort of like fantasy world based on India, and it largely follows these two characters, Priya and Malini. Priya is a maidservant who is harboring a very big secret, and Malini is an exiled princess who is now sent to live in this sort of unused temple that used to be a very powerful magical place but is no longer really used, and Priya is the maidservant, one of the maidservants who is kind of required to go in there every day and clean it up for her. So in the first book they get to know each other. There is a sort of like enemy vibe with them at first. They don't trust each other initially, but their stories and their fates do get twisted together a lot, alongside the stories of a lot of other characters. I was very surprised. I thought we'd just be following the two of them. There's a lot of other people in this kingdom whose stories you follow, and they sort of really help shape this fantasy and make it even more interesting to give a lot more context and explanation to this pretty big world that Tasha Suri created. So the relationship between Priya and Malini can possibly change the fate of the kingdom. Malini is very angry over being exiled by her brother, who is the prince or king now of the kingdom, and yeah, there is a lot of, it's sort of like, I think it's gonna be sort of like a revenge story, and I'm very intrigued to see where it goes. Again, I feel like I do kind of want to reread the first one, or at least kind of like the ending of it, because I just don't fully remember what, there's some people who die, there's a lot of secrets that get revealed, and I just don't 100% remember what happened. And that's why I don't read a lot of series, honestly, because I just, especially when they're unfinished, because I just know I'm not gonna remember everything. I read a lot, and though I try my best to like read carefully what I do read, if it's been a year or more than a year, it's really hard. But I remember really enjoying this book. The enemies to lovers sort of trope is in it a little bit, and yeah, I thought it was very well written, very interesting world building. I don't read a lot of fantasy anymore, but I'm very excited to see where this series, I think it's just supposed to be a trilogy, goes. And I mean, I know I'm gonna read this book, and the next book's gonna come out probably next year, and I'm gonna have forgotten some things again, but nevertheless, I do want to read this year. The next book is The Girl from the Sea by Molly Knox Ostertag, and this perhaps is the most summery vibe book on my list. The very back says, one summer can change everything, so maybe do have like a summery themed book. This is a graphic novel about a 15-year-old girl who can't wait to leave the island that she is growing up on. She feels that nobody really understands her. She doesn't have many close relationships, like with her family or others, and she has a secret that she wants to kiss a girl, and she doesn't feel like she can tell that to anyone. One day though, she gets saved from drowning by another girl, and they become very close friends, and she starts to feel like maybe it's not so bad to live on this island after all. However, this girl has some secrets too, and I guess there is going to be a sort of reckoning around both of their secrets. I feel like I can sort of guess from the cover what this other girl's secret might be, but I'm still very interested. This looks like a really cute book. And this came out in 2021, but I follow Molly Knox Ostertag on Twitter, and so I remember her posting about it in 2020, being like, hey, this book's gonna be released next summer or something, and I was like, I can't believe we're gonna have to wait a year to read this. It looks so cute, it looks so fun. I love like LGBT graphic novels, and then, you know what, now it's 2023, and I still haven't read it. Pretty sure I bought it, maybe I bought it 2021 shortly after it came out. If not, then I bought it sometime last year, and I just still have not picked it up. So I'm really, really excited for this, and I have been for a while, but I don't know, I've just been putting it off. It's not even a very long graphic novel, and like, yeah, I get through graphic novels in like a day, maybe two, so hopefully we'll get to this summer. Next we have Trick Mirror by Gia Tolentino. I'm pretty sure I bought this the same day that I bought The Girl from the Sea, and I have not read either. So I don't know too much about Gia Tolentino. I know she is an essayist and writer on society and culture at large. I have read one of her essays for sure on essay writing, or like personal essays specifically, and kind of how there was a sort of boom of them on the internet for a while, and now you don't see them so much anymore. But besides that, I'm not sure if I've read much by her. Maybe I did, I just didn't know it was her at the time. But in 2021 or 2022, I saw a lot of people talking about this book and her writing specifically. So I got interested, I bought this book, and I just had not read it yet, of course. I read some of the descriptions of what these essays are about, and they seem a little bit vague or broad. I'm sure that the actual essays will not be vague or broad. I know that I'm sure there's some conversation on social media, on patriarchy, on obviously culture more broadly, but I don't know enough to really describe them. I just know that a lot of people who I have followed on BookTube have really enjoyed this book, have recommended this book to me, and it's very different from anything I've read in a very long time. I don't think I've read a collection of essays since Bad Feminist by Roxane Gay, and that was like 2016 or something. I love this cover. I know that's part of why I bought it and why like it looks so intriguing to me. So yeah, gonna get to this summer, hopefully, because it's been a while, and maybe I can just like read this on the side with something else, like take it like one essay at a time, one essay per day or something, if I don't want to just read it all in one go, because I feel like I've been really bad at reading nonfiction lately, and just, I don't know, sometimes internalizing people's thoughts and the meaning behind what they're saying fully, it's been a little bit difficult. There's just been a lot going on, and it's just a lot easier to pick up something fictional that you don't necessarily have to think about as much, or even if you do think about it, I don't know, it's different for me. So I do want to try to get to this summer, maybe read both the two books that I bought on the same day, close to each other finally. Next we have Strega by Johan Decolonial. I'm sorry if I'm butchering this Swedish name. This is a book I bought in Sweden when I visited in March, and I partially bought it for the cover. I think it's a very beautiful cover. There's like a cool eye design on the back. You just don't see books with this sort of texture that often anymore, I don't think. So I will be honest, I did buy it partially for the cover. This is sort of a gothic novel about 9 young women who get sent to the Alps to work at a seasonal hotel as seasonal workers, and the sort of busy and maybe unexciting lives that they lead through that, having to follow the sort of strict rules that their bosses set out for them, while their guests kind of party and have a nice time. And in the midst of some of these parties, one that possibly they get to attend or have to work at, one of these 9 young women disappear. And so that sets something off. There's no more description beyond that, so I'm very excited to see what happens at that point. And I know that there's going to be some discussions on conversations around gender, and specifically like women's socialization and the expectations that women have to kind of live up to or work around in this world. So it sounds interesting. It's a very short book, has like mid reviews on Goodreads, but I'm still interested. This is Decolonial Feminism by Francois Verger, and I am very excited to read this book about feminism. I used to read so many books on feminism. I got very interested in learning about feminism when I was in high school, and I just read almost everything that I could for a very long time. Obviously, like the history of feminism, different types of feminisms, and I have not picked up really anything about feminism in a very long time. My views on feminism have shifted. Of course, I was first introduced to a kind of very liberal feminism, which I don't agree with much anymore, and I've since adopted like parts of different feminist sort of ideologies, from radical to Marxist feminism. Obviously, I don't agree with everything from each of these either, but I do find that they're a bit more compelling than liberal feminism. And yeah, I think this one seems like a very good overarching book that is very anti-capitalist, anti-colonial, anti-imperialist, that really, I think, follows a lot of what I believe in now. So I'm really curious to read more about it. This book specifically looks at the sort of co-optation that feminism or multiculturalism face from the things that they seek to destroy. So there's a conversation on prisons, on sort of policing of women's bodies, on power and whiteness and Eurocentrism. So that should be really, really interesting. Again, I haven't read anything like this in quite a while. It's a very tiny book, so I'm sure it'll go over quickly, but it's also intimidating in a sense because I don't want to just like speed read through it. I know that there's going to be a lot of like important and interesting stuff in it. And yeah, I'm just interested to read a book on feminism that presumably critiques liberalism and definitely critiques capitalism. And the last book is Home Field Advantage by Dahlia Adler. And I'm super excited for this one. I read Cool for the Summer by her last summer or 2 summers ago, and I was pleasantly surprised by how much I liked it, because some sapphic novels have been falling a little bit short for me in the last years. There's so many that I love and hold dear to my heart from when I was younger and first introduced to a lot of romances between lesbian and bi women. And I don't know, maybe it's partially because I'm not a young adult anymore, so other young adult books kind of fall a bit flat for me, and maybe it doesn't fully have what I'm looking for. This follows a cheerleader called Amber in high school, and she wants to, I believe, become captain of the cheer squad or have like a bigger role in it. But she, as well as the rest of the team, the cheer team, the football team, and the whole high school are mourning the death of their star quarterback. And so that seems like a very difficult thing. And a new quarterback comes in, I'm not sure from where, from another school maybe, named Jack, but who turns out to be, their full name is Jacqueline. So the team is not very happy about this. The boys are not very happy to be led by a woman, a girl. The cheerleaders, for some reason, also are not very happy about this, and the whole school is just in an uproar over it. Amber tries to find some sort of unity between Jack and the other players or the rest of the team, but it becomes very apparent, like pretty early on, that if she wants to make it into cheer squad, into the position that she wants to be in, she cannot be on Jack's side of things. Despite this, she finds herself falling for Jack, and so I'm sure a very complicated romance will ensue, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure they're like, a lot of these like YA like romances are a little bit predictable for me, but I read them because I like that. I read them because I think they're fun, cool for the summer as well. Although there were a few things that I didn't totally expect, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. So these are all the 10 books that I'm excited to read this summer, that I will really try very hard to read this summer. Yeah, I own a lot of these books. There's a few waiting for me at the library as well, or that I will soon be seeking out of the library. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know if you have read any of these books, or if you are planning on it. Are there any other books that you are excited to read this summer? Because I will never say no to a recommendation, and it will just go on my ever-growing TBR. And I hope you are having a great start to your summer. If you liked this video, please like, please subscribe. It means so much. I'd also love to read your comments on any thoughts on these books. And yeah, hope you have something good to read, hope you have something cool to look forward to, and I will catch you in the next video.